Hi, a very warm welcome. I'm Louie Shalin, welcoming you to my next episode of Whispers of the Soul. Today, we are going to be accompanied by an author, Emmy. She has been working on various different forms of art. She has been very expressive with her works, and it's gonna be an absolute honor to have her with us today. So, let me welcome Emmy. Here we are. Hello, hi Amy. How are you doing?
Hi, how are you?
Good, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Not bad. It's a nice sunny day over here, so
That's nice. It's good to have a sunny day.
yep. So,
First of all,
how
thank you
are
so
things over where you are?
much. I believe there's a lag in the talks. Saying first of all, thank you so much for joining us. It's an honor to have you here with us today.
Thank you. I'm glad you reached out to me.
It's gonna be good. All right. So I would request if you can start with a small introduction of yours, like if you just talk two lines about yourself.
Well, I was born and raised in Illinois. I moved to Michigan for my husband, Adrian, who's also a writer. That's how we met. And and we have I have three stepchildren, and I have two cats named Rosie and Tilly.
Ah, nice, nice. That's nice. So can you talk about a little about your works, like how have been your journey as an author?
I actually started writing these books back in 1994. I know I'm putting an age on myself, but I was a freshman in college and I started writing them just for myself, for my own pleasure. And about like 2010, I decided I wanted to see the work in print. So I really started working on getting things to the level it needed to be so I could see it in print. And that's when print on demand was just starting out. And
Mhm.
so the quality wasn't quite there, the organization wasn't quite there. And so I made a few mistakes along the way, but I learned from them. And a couple years ago, I decided to relook at what I was doing, and Amazon was doing their print on demand, and it was very easy, very inexpensive, and so I started going that route, and decided to relaunch the first book earlier this year with the new cover and um, new book blurb, and I added a glossary. People love glossary when we're writing a fantasy novel, so yeah, so I included that too.
Oh wow, that's nice. That's really nice. So how has been your writing? Like, how have you been seeing your writing over these years? Like, how it has transformed with you, or how it has
Like,
improved with you?
it's definitely gotten much better. I have a critique partner who's looked at my work from book one to my current work, which is the third novel in the series, and she's noticed a definite improvement. And I think once you're going through the process and you go through the editing process, you just continually become a better writer. And the more you read, the more you become a better writer. So it just takes a lot of dedication and a lot of just doing the things that you need to do in order to become better with your craft. And that happens when you get feedback and you do the work, you get feedback, and you just keep going until you just get to the level you need to be.
Right, right, absolutely. It's quite an organic process, and more than just the writing. There's a lot of internal churning of emotions that really go on within, and
Definitely.
that's really quite a journey to embrace.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I mean, in 1994, if you told me this is where my work would be today, I wouldn't have believed you. But um, I'm pretty proud of what I've accomplished so far, and want to continue writing as many novels as I can, um, which I have like dozens of them in my head that I want to get out on paper. But yeah, just got to go as quickly as you can go.
Oh, wow, like I would say it 26 years, it's a pretty long time. It's a
Yep.
pretty long time. So what has been your motivation like when you started writing? What was your initial motivation?
Um, it's like when you're a kid and you indulge in your imagination, you create these stories, and I just I didn't want to give that up. So I decided to start putting it down on paper and started writing it. So being able to have these stories, be able to do these stories and continue to do them
Right,
as an adult, it was my main motivation to start with.
right. Wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So would you like to talk a little about your work? About
Sure. My first novel was Echoes of the Gita, and basically it's about this boy who is being hunted down by this king who has unnatural powers. And the Gita
hmm,
is a spiritual leader in the community, but this king has suppressed them and killed them, and they've been hunted down until there's only a few left.
right,
So the Gita searches for this boy, and this boy is a subject of a prophecy which will help change the course of the the kingdom where they live in. But first, she has to get him out of there so that the king doesn't kill him and take over. So she tells the story to him about the first Gita, the very first one, and it's basically in a creation story about how this spiritual um, group of people came to be, and how the first people who came there were sent by the creator to populate Georia, which is the planet they're on. And so he's learning who he is and what his place is in the prophecy, and that's the story.
wow. So it's more of a journey of self-discovery, and what's really like what I really find fascinating is like you really created a new world in your story.
Yes, I do love my world building. So, and I love people reading what other people created as part of their world too. And so yeah, I look at everything from like economic system, the spiritual life of the people that are living there, the topography, magic systems, um, language is another aspect. So I do way more than what my readers will ever see, but I feel like if you build a solid enough world and you you place those characters in it, and this is how they're affected by the world, that'll pretty much drive whatever plot that you want to put out there. So
Wow.
yeah, I feel very strongly about good world building.
Mhm. That's genuinely, I would say, that is some, I would say, pure imagination, because not just imagination, it's like bringing about all the worlds together and just formulating something which would exist, something which is complete, and I would say it's really fascinating to know about. So, what has been the most striking feature about, like, what has been that special thing about the world which you create? Like, we all tend to add something, some part of ourselves in that.
I've heard people when they've read the novels that it's kind of a philosophical read at the core. And I think that's mainly because of, the Gita and the spiritual aspect. So I wanted to create something where um, not specifically following a certain religion per se, but those things that we all have in common as people of faith and as spiritual people. And I've had people who um, follow shamanistic principles, some people who are Christian, people who are Muslim, um, all find something in there that they can connect with on that level. And that was really my goal with that, is that people will be able to connect with it from all walks of life. Um, those common truths that we all embrace as people.
Wow. So it's kind of the fabric of life, and it's just defining that fabric of life once again in your own words and in the sense in which it would become relevant for the story.
Yep.
Wow, that's wonderful. So I was wondering if you can like read out some of the extract, like some of your favorite extracts from the book, like the
Uh,
is
well,
really
I love the beginning because it introduces us to the lady who's the Gita, the main Gita. And I love the fact that it highlights who she is, and that there's so much story there that we don't know about.
beautiful.
Um, I can read, yeah, I can read a few paragraphs. Is that
Uh,
all right?
yeah.
The lady sat quietly on a bed. Her posture was straight with unbent shoulders, learned with hunters of self-discipline. Her hands, folded neatly in her lap, were gnarled with age, spotted, with blue veins sticking out starkly against the crepe paper texture of her skin. Her face reflected the same discipline that radiated from the rest of her body. However, fine lines around her mouth and eyes revealed she was not unfamiliar with laughter. Each line and wrinkle told a story, and there were many stories in her face, stories of great joy and of great sorrow. It is the face of one who knew what it meant to live with purpose. She was called the Lady for reasons she couldn't remember. Her legend had grown out of the ashes of an unspeakable genocide. Her guilt over her survival was tremendous in those early days, and she found herself wandering into the North Country. Through blood and rebellion, her legend grew. Whispers about the lady filled Sadashian homes with hope that the Gita would return. With her growing infamy, the king became more determined to see her and any remaining Gita dead. She had come to this small village in secret with a specific purpose, her one last task before being called to Haven Nagata. She appeared serene, but her eyes were decidedly not. Her clear blue eyes were stormy, filled with memories of long ago. So, yeah.
Wow, lovely. That's lovely to know. So can you talk about a little about the main character, the Gita, as you said, like in your own words, like how do you see that character? Because
Um,
also a lot.
she's older. She's been through a tremendous amount of trials and tribulation, and she's been faithful to the creator and what he would like to happen with the world, and has followed that faithfully. And she's just that wise sage that is imparting, information, to this one last person that she can help mentor into the role of a Gita.
She's being a mentor, and to it's like making of the ruler. She's in the process of making the ruler of Gida.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right.
So it is generally said that so like what's so I believe this is also your favorite character in the book as well. We all
Um, my favorite character. Because there's Tegan, who's the young boy, and then in the story, the main character is Menkos, and he is the first one, the very first one to arrive on Georia. And so writing his journey, how he, grew up and took care of the other um, people that were also sent by the creator, and then his journey as a young adult and how he had to um, overcome his own uh, bits of adversity as far as fighting Etaven, the evil one. And so I just really wanted people to root for him as he's trying to go through this journey and fighting um, Etaven, the ultimate baddie in the whole story. So yeah, he's my favorite. He's like a child to me. If that makes sense.
right. So there's always one character which it is like which the author can relate to, and there's one character which author looks up to.
And that when people have read the novels, like they'll tell me like certain things that they relate to, like they'll relate to Gan for this reason, or they'll relate to Menkos for this reason, or the lady really resonates with this person. So I love that people will pick things that they can really connect with,
Right.
which is what you want as a writer. Um, Now, like my subsequent novels, like my second novel, I have two different sets of main characters, which is Kefa and Falana. So there's two different sets of main characters, and we go on the journey with them
So
and see what happens there.
what's the name of the second book?
The second one's called Tetrarol Parallel. Tetrarol in Sadashan means they that rule. And so Kefa has a secret, and I don't know if I want to reveal her secret per se, because you find it at the end of the first novel who she is, but she definitely has a secret, and not everybody knows who she really is. The lady knows, but nobody else really knows who she is. So she struggles with her identity and the ultimate uh, knowledge that she's going to have to return back to Sadat. Um, she initially escaped from there for very good reasons, and the lady tells her she has to go back. But as she's going to give her a tool called the Tetrarol, which is a book that's been magically enhanced to only be able to be read by Kefa. So Kefa is reading the story, and the story in the book is of Falana, who is the second one to arrive in Georia. And so it tells Falana's story and how they continue the struggle against Etaven and how they overcome that. So that's the second novel. And then I finished drafting the third novel, which is another set of main characters that have been introduced in the second book. So it just kind of continues from there.
That sounds so interesting. That sounds really interesting. So in the
Yeah.
second part, I'm wondering it's kind of like this lady you're talking about who has to leave due to some very good reasons, and she was told to come back. So it's kind of a part which is left behind, or which had to, I would say, it's the part of the kingdom, or it's the part of the story which has taken a different route, or which has there has been a diversion for that. and then it again comes back to the story. It's kind
Yeah.
of
So
a
it has the two things that are going at the same time. So like first half of the chapter I devote to like Tigan's story, and then the second half of the chapter is Menkos's story, and they intertwine together um, around certain concepts. So like each chapter has like a certain concept or idea that we're seeing that on Tigan's side, and then we also see it on Menkos's side. So there's like this intertwining of the ideas um, as we're going down the journey, and that's how it works. I worked really hard to get it to work that way, so and it seems to come across well. It's not disjointed. There's definitely connection between the two characters um, as they're moving along.
So when did you get the idea of the second book?
Um, as I came to the end of the first book, I know some people plan out their series. I'm a total discovery writer, so I kind of go with it as it's going along. And as I near the end of each book, I have an idea where I want it to end. I have no idea how it's going to get there until I write it, but I know how I want something to end. I know where it begins and where it ends, and then I have to fill in the rest. Um, but for like the second book, it was getting near the end of the draft for the first one where I came up with what's going to happen with these next two characters and how we're going to move the overall arc of the series forward with that particular novel. And the same thing with the third one. As I came to the end of the second novel drafting it, I kind of had the idea where I wanted to go with the third one. And it's going to end up being a 4-book series just because it seemed to work out really well. Because I finished drafting the third one and I'm like, okay, well, this is how we're going to end it. And this book is going to tie everything together at the end of the series. So I'm at least that far. I have no idea how the story is going to go until I start sitting down at the computer and typing it out.
So by the end of the third one, I think the idea for the fourth one will also germinate. That's what that's what maybe we can think of at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, as far as I got so far. I mean, I have some general ideas on how to start the fourth one, but I want to spend, as I finish the first draft for the third one, I want it to rest, put it in a drawer for a couple of months and let it rest, and then go back and revise and smooth out any inconsistencies that I have from that draft because it's a very, very rough draft right now. And then I'll start getting into the fourth one a little bit later on. But I have some ideas. I have some ideas of how it's going to go.
Right, right. So, Amy, I was wondering that how it feels to be like how writing has evolved you as a person.
I feel like I'm much more confident with it. I do struggle with imposter syndrome just like everybody else. Um, you to me I've kind of reconciled that that is part of the process, that when you start feeling uncomfortable and you start feeling the imposter syndrome, that means I'm on the right track and I just have to work through it and figure it out. But I feel like I'm much more confident now with what I'm writing, and that there is a place in the world for this work and that people do enjoy it, and um, trying to get it in front of as many people as possible so that they can also read it and experience it. Um, so yeah, I feel like, yeah, I'm much more, yeah, confident, I guess, confident of who I am, and that this is something that I should be doing.
Right, right. So, as you talked about initially, that it is more of a philosophical creation of the place Gita.
Yeah, it is. I don't, Yeah, it is a little different from what I've read of traditional fantasy. Um, I guess it's a little bit more of a thoughtful read. I do have action in there and things like that, and I try to make sure the pacing is good. But yeah, ultimately there's like this underlying philosophical layer that's there with that's present with everything that I've written. So,
So is there, I would say, so is this philosophical creation, does it have a message, like an underlying message inside it, which has been built, like over which a fiction has been built?
well, for the first one, it was more of um, fulfilling a purpose. Like the creator has a purpose for your life. You just need to open your eyes and see what it might be. Um, for the second one, it was more of that the creator wants to have a relationship with you. Um, you have to be open to what is the creator's trying to tell you, and it may not be something that's direct, or he may not be speaking to you directly, but there are things where if you are open to that relationship, that you'll be able to find your path that way. And then the third book, I've kind of for this one, it's more of sometimes you got to take a leap of faith to get to where you need to go. Sometimes you can't see where things are gonna go, but sometimes you just got to jump in and see where it takes you.
Right, right. More of the natural course sometimes. Like sometimes the natural course, and sometimes it's just the underlying feeling that where it's gonna lead to,
Right.
the undertone.
But like for the second one, like for Keifa, she didn't feel like she deserved to be loved. And when the lady gives her the tetraroll, and she's like, I don't deserve this, and the lady will tell her that a gift is not something that you deserve, it's just something that you accept. And I'm giving this to you out of love, so just accept it.
Right. It's just a path which is unraveled, or some opening which has come up, and which has been accepted by somebody.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. I was wondering if you can like read out some extract from the second book, if
Let's see if I can. Let me see. Okay. Yeah. This is kind of highlighting what I was talking about. Um, so we start with the lady speaking. Kay, can you sit for a minute? Kaifa slowly turned and moved to the lady's chair. Yes, my lady? Sit. The lady indicated the footstool. Kaifa lowered herself slowly and looked expectantly at her mentor and surrogate mother. As always, she was taken aback by the love and compassion shown in her eyes. I have something for you. Kaifa sat up straighter. For me? What would you have for me? The lady carefully lifted a book from the table next to her. It was ancient looking, bound in red leather and tooled with peeling gold letters, and a triskelion with the coiled snakes making up 3 lobes. The pages are rough and uneven, and she could smell the age of the paper from where she sat. She looked at the book apprehensively, and then at the lady. You know my time on this Georia is near the end. She held up a hand when Kay protested. Lilin, I have walked on this geo for 85 hunters. 85. Hard to believe, she murmured. I have seen many things and have done many things. I have been faithful servant to the Creator, and he has blessed me many times over. This book is my gift to you. White brows rose expectantly. I'm not worthy of this, she protested, placing her hands beneath her legs. Kay, she interrupted. You don't deserve a gift. A gift is given out of the love of the giver. All you have to do is accept. The lady's hands trembled as she held up the book to Kaifa. Kaifa stared at the old woman. There seemed to be a double meaning to her words, as usual. And as usual, she could not grasp what it was. Carefully, she took the book from the lady's hands. The lady gave her a satisfied smile. Now go and change if you like. I would be grateful if you would start midday meal in an hour. That should be soon enough. Thank you, Kay remembered to say as she rose to her feet and headed to her bedroom. So.
Lovely. This is the part, I think, when part of acceptance, as we talked about. So how has been your connection with this character?
Kaifa? Definitely a connection to when I was younger and not as confident, or believing that I didn't deserve love or didn't deserve to be valued in a way, and figuring out that, of course, that's totally not true, that we all deserve to be loved and accepted and respected. And so, yeah, her journey reflects some of what my life experience it was at that time as a younger woman.
As a younger, okay, nice. So it's more of an emotion, like some often, like when you started writing in 1994. So the emotions behind your writing, like they might have been coming from a, like a place of expression where you wanted to express yourself, and that
Yes.
emotion that has taken the form of a fiction, that has taken the form of words, and it has.
So like for the third novel, I wanted to focus on the theme of disability and how disability does not define us. I was diagnosed 10 years ago with lupus and fibromyalgia, and the experience that I had with that was extremely difficult. And finding, that I could still be a productive person in society regardless. And then finding beauty within just a moment. Sometimes when you acquire a disability, things slow down quite a bit. And so you start seeing things that maybe you wouldn't have seen if you were as busy as I used to be. I used to work 60 hours a week, so can't do that now. But I learned a lot in slowing down. And so the third book kind of runs along that theme. And I also wanted to see more representation of people with disabilities in fantasy. And so yeah, I just really wanted to push that idea through the third novel. So
this connects more to the part of things of slowing down and seeing things as from a different lens, from altogether different perspective.
yeah, I feel like as I've lived my life, like the characters reflect that new aspect that I've acquired. So I may not be that person that Kaifa was anymore, but and I'm not even where the main character is for the third book now, but I was there like 10 years ago. And so I remember that mindset and how I got through it. And so that's part of the reason why I don't know where book 4 is going to dig into yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, so I think that would be also a surprise and suspense at the same time when we book 4.
The characters have a way of surprising me for sure. As I'm writing, I kind of like have an idea where I want the direction to go, and then they're like, nope, we're going this way.
So, what has been the message from, like, when you wrote the first book? It was so, as the characters, they have been different emotional expressions.
For the first book, I feel like the overall theme is like loss of innocence. So you have this idea of how the world is, and you find out that the world doesn't work that way, that you've been protected, so to speak, from the harshness that the world is. And so you go through this loss of innocence, and then you find your actual place in the world and what your purpose is and where you need to go with it. So, the second book is just more of the acceptance of love and realizing that there is purpose in that. I have a better answer for that. I just can't think of it right now. Yeah, I can't think of it right now.
So, what has been your connection or your relation with the part of loss of innocence, which I talked about in the first book?
Well, I mean, I was definitely protected as a child from the world. That the community I grew up in was very small town. Um, it's like 90% white, so there's not a lot of perspective. And then you go and you leave that place and you find out there's this entire world out there and all these different kinds of people with all these different kinds of perspectives and all kinds of beliefs, and it's just, it was eye-opening and wonderful, and getting to know people and where they're from and how they, came to be where they are today. And um, I just, yeah, being in a very small community in rural central Illinois was just very insular. So it was nice to get out and go to different places. I ended up living by Chicago for a while, and that was, it's just a mix of all kinds of people that you can connect with. So
Hmm. Right, right. So that's more of the eye opening and entering to the real world and seeing everything firsthand and not the processed information which was being passed on earlier.
yeah.
And then the second book, it talks more about concurrence and growing as one who's strong
Um,
in the world.
I was married once before my current husband, and it was a very difficult relationship. A lot of times I didn't feel deserving of a certain love and respect because of the type of relationship I was in. And I believed a lot of the things that were being told to me, that I wasn't good enough or there was something wrong with me. There's absolutely nothing wrong with me. It was just the relationship that I was in, which was very toxic. And once I got outside of that relationship and looked at things from a very different perspective, I was able to find that, yeah, I am deserving of love and respect and those kinds of things. So um, the character, it wasn't in a, I don't want to give too much away. That's going to spoil it. Um, but yeah, she was in a toxic, she was involved in a toxic relationship, a very toxic relationship. And so coming out of that and then finding her way from there.
Right, right. So it's the union of the old, the old you, like the old Emmy and the new Emmy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right. So what message would you like to pass on to? So when you wrote book one and when you wrote book two and now when you're writing book three, so any message which you would like to pass on to the older version of you, the previous version, or rather the younger one of you?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, there's going to be a point in your life where you lose just about everything that you hold dear. And it may seem very dark at the moment, but you will come out the other side stronger and in the light. And just don't give up and just keep pushing on and keep having hope.
This is to the first Emmy, like the one who wrote book number one.
Yep.
Right. So it's to the one who was all dazed and gleamed with the perception of the world, like seeing a lot of new things at the same time, entering into almost a new realm.
Yep. Yeah, that sums it up really well.
And how about the second one, like the one who wrote the second book?
The second one was in a very toxic relationship, and she believed that if she put in enough effort that it would just make things better. And sometimes that doesn't work that way. Um, Sometimes you have to let certain things go, whether you want to or not, in order to gain some other insight or be able to have a better life, a happier life.
Right, right. So this is the one who earns back all the love and who earns the deserved, I would say, love and respect.
Yes.
One who conquers that back, and just like the form of a homecoming,
Say that again.
just like a form of homecoming.
Oh, a homecoming. Yes. Yes. I would say that's accurate.
Yeah, coming back to the own emotion, like this is who I am. Like,
Yes.
wow, that's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. And now we are looking forward to book three. So we will not talk much about it because that's yet to come. And
Mhm.
I think the suspense and the surprise for the book three should be there for the readers to maybe like just to unleash the readers.
Yeah, like I said, my critique partner read through it. She loved it. She loved how I ended it, which I'm happy with because writing endings are not easy.
Of course, yeah.
Um, you want to. I like the happy for now endings. I'm not so keen on the happily ever afters per se, but I like the happy for now. This is where are at now, and we're content until the next thing happens, whatever I come up with.
Right. In the moment, like living moment to moment and just living
Yes.
with a smile.
So yeah, I'm glad she really enjoyed the ending and felt that it was very appropriate for this book. So yeah.
So would you like to talk a little about your partner who has been reading this book and what has been her contribution so far in your journey?
Oh, she's been wonderful. Her name's Ashley K. Wilson, and she's working on her debut novel. But she's an avid reader, loves fantasy, and we connected last year and just started reading each other's work and giving feedback on what we respond to as fantasy readers. And we use we use Google Docs now, and basically we'll leave comments like this, I love this, or this isn't really working, or maybe this could be reworked to sound better, or maybe we could consider this as an option. So just having that feedback really made the world, made the world for me, meant the world to me. Um, and I'm hoping that I reciprocate just as well. And she says she's very happy with what I reciprocate to her too. Um, but she's like the first person that usually sees whatever I've come up with, and then gets that initial feedback, and then I kind of know where to go with the revisions. But
Right.
yeah, she's been a great partner.
Right. It's beautiful. It's like sharing the mental space more than the Google Docs. Like just sharing that mental space and being an accomplice of walking through the road of the story or just accompanying each other.
Yeah. So yeah, she's very good. She's very good. So I can't wait for her debut novel to come out. And hopefully that'll be early next year, we're hoping. But she's worked very hard on it, and her world building is really exceptional too. So
That's gonna be that's also gonna be another I would say a cherishable journey to let's say to talk about. Would you like to talk about your husband? As you said, he is also an author, and what what are the kind of books he writes, and what's his domain of writing?
what kind of books I write or what kind of books I read?
No, you talked about your husband that he also is an author.
Oh, my husband, yes. Um, we met on MySpace a long time ago. Um, was it 13 years ago? But I was writing blogs on there, and he was writing a blog on there, and we got introduced by um, this older British gentleman who liked both of our blogs and put us in touch with each other, and we started commenting on each other's work, and then emailing, and then phone, and then 4 years later we finally met, and it was instant. But he likes science fiction, so that's like the thing he loves doing. And in particular, he loves things with artificial intelligence and kind of pushing the envelope of the philosophical stuff as far as what artificial intelligence will be like in the future and the ethical issues and things like that. So he's got a few projects going. Um, he does as much as he can. He works full time, so his time is limited. But yeah, he's got quite a bit down, and hopefully, I would really love to see him have a published work at some point in the future. I really, really would love that for him.
So basically, you address to it's like creating a fantasy world. It's like creating the world through different lenses. What you are creating through your emotions, maybe he's trying to create the same through science fiction and more from the perspective of technology.
Yeah, 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 I would say that's correct. So, but yeah, I've got like tons of notebooks on world building. I mean, it's definitely extensive. Like I said, my readers won't see majority of it, but I feel like if you build it, then it'll help make the characters more rich and a lot more depth. Makes things feel more lived in otherwise. Um, my husband approaches it from a plot standpoint, so he outlines, so he's a plotter. He likes to plot out the stories, and then he'll build things around the plot. I do the opposite. I build the world first, and then the plot comes out of that. It's a different approach. It
Right.
both works.
So he's maybe like he's just demarcating the domain and then he's venturing into it. And you're just venturing into it and then the demarcation of adventure happens on its own. Then it's pure adventure. As
Yep, exactly.
so, how's that moment when you're in that moment of adventure? You're writing and you're exploring yourself. That what's opening up and what's coming up. How's that moment?
Again, like I'm definitely a discover writer. So I kind of start with like a general concept and then I'll do like a word sprint. So I'll set the timer for like 30 minutes and I will forget about everything. I'll forget about how things are edited, if things are put together right, and I will just go into this zone and then just start immersing myself into that character and what the character is doing and saying and how they want to how they want to move the plot forward. So um, again, like I know where I want to end. It's just it's kind of an adventure for me because I really don't know what's going to happen until I start writing it down and start getting into that zone.
Right.
I've tried to do outlines, several times, but as soon as I sit down, the entire thing's destroyed. So put in all that work to do an outline and I've completely destroyed it within the first few words that I type. So I've learned to accept it. And I learned that there's other people that work the same way. So I'm like, okay, so this is how I approach things. That's all right.
Just taking them one by one and being adventurous with that.
Yes.
That's that's in that because that itself, I would say, when a reader reads a suspense, so there's some amount of just surprise element or some kind of, I would say, that tension that builds in, that emotional tension that builds in. So it's simply 100x for the writer.
Yeah. Drafting is for me, like I'm telling the story to myself when I draft. And then when I go back and edit, I have to think about how the reader is going to experience this and making sure everything works together smoothly and that it's hitting the right beats for them, that they know that the inciting incident's going to happen within this number of pages and that things are going to escalate to the point where it gets to the climax. And I mean, we all know this intuitively because if you've read anything at all, on a regular basis, we all intuitively know how a story tends to play out. So even though it's really unstructured and I'm not doing an outline, I still intuitively know where those beats are that I need to hit.
Right, right, right. So it's all that organic opening up of the whole story. So how has been your need for reading? Like, what's your favorite reads or what's your preference for reading?
My preference, I've been really into urban fantasy for some reason. I don't know why, but I've been picking up a lot of those lately, and there's just some really good work out there with independent authors that I've just really enjoyed and plan on reading things through. I do read sci-fi. I've read contemporary romance. I've read paranormal romance. I purchased a book on quantum physics, so I'll read that. Um, just pretty much anything and everything under the sun. I don't think that there's anything that I particularly don't like, except maybe there's a certain subset of fantasy where it reads kind of like a video game. That I probably don't enjoy as much. But if it's done well, then I'll read it.
Right, like what do you mean by like how do you describe it as a video game?
Um, there's no real overarching epic issue that's happening. It's just a series of things that occur, like if you were in a video game. So then there's a little bit of banter, and then the action happens. And there's a pause, a little bit more banter, and then it goes on to another action sequence. And
Right. So
It's like you're accomplishing different levels, and the person leveled up on the next chapter. So then they're doing the next level, and it's another level of difficulty, and they're just acquiring items to meet this ultimate goal. So it reads like a video game.
something which is not having a purpose, but yes, it's something which is moving on.
Yeah, and I understand why there's a lot of people that enjoy that. It's just not my thing as much. Not as much. Things that are based off of Dungeons and Dragons, those are all right. I enjoy those. Um, but epic fantasy is probably my favorite type of fantasy out there. Like the really high stakes, and you really delve into the characters and the world building, and so yeah,
Right. So it's also in reading and also in writing. Like, and something there's a purpose and something you're working towards, which is really gonna matter to a lot of people. And like you said, like the stakes are high.
those stakes are high. I like those high stakes. And sci-fi too, like if it's like a really epic sci-fi, I really enjoy that as well. You know, those really high stakes in that type of setting. I really enjoy reading those too.
Right. So any message you would like to leave for the readers who would be excited or surprised, or like any message for the readers who will be reading your books?
Um, just that what I would hope is that as you're reading it, that it's something that you can apply to your own life. Um, it's an escape, but at the same time, I hope that there's some elements of truth that you can um, really, really glean from the reading these, and maybe that you can it opens up your mind to other possibilities or things that you can do that you can apply to your own life. Um, and that you know, just really connecting with the characters and really relating and knowing that, you know, ultimately in the end that there's going to be something that you can do to affect your destiny or make your life better after reading these.
Wow, that's such a beautiful message. And also because it also relates to the emotion and philosophy behind it.
Definitely.
So that's how it relates to the reader, and it also relates to the purpose and the concern, addressing them at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's absolutely, Amy. It was a great time talking to you and knowing
Thank
about.
you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Same here, same here. It was a pleasure having you. And as the name of the series which I'm running, Whispers of the Soul, it describes. So it's
Um, the series is called the Genesis Chronicles, so if that helps.
Genesis Chronicles.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nice name.
Yeah.
So that's lovely to know about you and lovely to know about the series. And we wish you all the best for
Thank you so much.
books. And thank you
I
so much.
wish you the best as well.
Thank you. All right. So it was beautiful talking to you and wish you all the best for your books. And yeah, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, Amy, have a good day. And it's also like something I would like to add regarding the series which I'm running, Whispers of the Soul. It really goes by like the way you presented things. It was absolutely beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful to go by the descriptions which you added, and it was really, let's say, something which a reader can connect to, and also the writer.
Good. Good. You just made my day.
Well, all right. Thank you so